Bear down, Chicago Bears. We've got another update for you today. We're going to talk about the new OC that we're going to be interviewing today. And I actually like this selection for a very specific reason. Then we're going to look in on some of the mock drafts. And guys, I want to say some of this is getting just absolutely bonkers. And also want to talk about there was a thing called fan confidence. There's an so they do these surveys on fan confidence. Fan confidence doesn't seem to be at an all-time high because of the move that was just made to retain Matt Eberflus when in certain people's brains, certain people might be available and just it turns out are not available. But we have this impression that everything is far worse than it actually is. And I do want to quantify that and I will qualify that. If you follow me for any length of time, you already know the answer to that. But if you're new, if you're just checking this out, hit the like button, the subscribe button, if you will, on the way in. Leave a comment down below letting me know whether you agree or disagree with what I'm about to say. And I do want to point out for the record, we're going to start with that fan confidence thing. Um, the article looks like this. Fan confidence in the Chicago Bears drops, indicating that most of the reason for that is because they brought back Matt Eberflus, and that you can expect there's going to be a confidence poll decline when you lose to your rival, the Green Bay Packers. So people are not feeling very good about it. And then you have these bait articles here with Lester Wiltfong saying that seeing Green Bay quarterback Jordan Love cook the Bears defense made it worse. Probably not the wording that I would use, but fair enough, Lester. You got it. But he says that the confidence level for the Chicago Bears down to 54%. Now, this is early, and I don't think that they're paying attention to everything because there's a gross disconnect between being able to listen to people who say Ryan Poles is doing a fantastic and an amazing and incredible job. And I can't believe that Ryan Poles would keep Matt Eberflus. He sucks as a GM. So you get this disconnect from reality. Now, let me also point to reality. There were 5 games that were decided by less than a touchdown for the Chicago Bears. Now, if you add in 10 points, there were 7 games decided by 10 points. But if you just take those 5 that were decided, in 4 of those games, the Bears were leading. Now, if the Bears just did what they were supposed to do, and I don't want to say on defense, that's unfair. The defense is going to give up points. The defense can't contain everything, everywhere, every time. Even the best defenses give up points, and some of the best defenses give up points late. The Chicago Bears were famous for a bend but not break defense in the early 2000s with Brian Urlacher, Lance Briggs, and a host of talented individuals. They still gave up points. And it should be fair to note that Lester here says that the Bears got cooked and they gave up 17 points. The problem was they only scored 9 because for some reason, after going 6 for 6 at the start of the game, Justin Fields, that is, Luke Getsy only called 10 more pass plays for an entire game. So, throw away some of what you know. And look, it should be fair if you're a Matt Eberflus hater that Matt Eberflus hired Luke Getsy to do the job that he was obviously incapable of doing. And he hired the defensive coordinator and the running back coach that he had to let go at the beginning of the season for reasons still unknown. So he's not nailing it when it comes to hiring. So it would be fair to say that if you don't like Matt Eberflus, you have your reasons. But I will posit this as if you believe in Ryan Poles and you think that Montez Sweat and you think that the draft picks, if you think that bringing in these new guys, Gervon Dexter starting to come along in his second year, drafted by Ryan Poles. If you look at Tyreek Stevenson having just a fantastic season, Darnell Wright bringing the heat, Montez Sweat as a superb trade and big time move. DJ Moore as one of the steals of last year's draft. If you look at those things and you say, well, hey, this guy really knows what he's talking about, then why are we fighting about Matt Eberflus? So fan confidence being down seems a little weird to me, but I understand. Again, I can think that it's weird and still understand why you feel that way. But let's move on here and let's get to the next piece. And folks, I do want to say, and I do want to remind you, if you haven't already, please hit that like button. Helps me to trend and send, so to speak, and subscribe to the channel. It helps me out tremendously. And I appreciate and thank you so much for your support. I know I'm kind of an upstart here, and I know that this is me just, kind of breaking out and getting started, but the fact that you guys spend your time with me on a daily basis does not fall on deaf ears. So thank you so much for that. And let's move on to the next topic. The next topic is the Bears want to interview a college offensive coordinator, Kentucky's Liam Coen. Now, I say college because he's in college right now, but he has been an OC for the Rams recently and has kind of oscillated back and forth between the Rams and Kentucky over the last about 10 years. And what I want to say here is I don't think this is a bad idea. Now, here's what I will say in this regard. He is a tough, hard-nosed, run-first guy. However, what he also did was he turned Will Levis into an NFL level quarterback. And for this year, he coordinated the Kentucky offense and saw quarterback Devin Leary throw for 2,746 yards with 25 touchdowns and 12 interceptions. Now, was that good enough? I want to say, I think that maybe that could have been better, but then let's take some context to it because, we see, 3,500 yards, 4,000 yards from some of these kids. But in 2021, he helped put quarterback Will Levis on the map in his first season as a Wildcat with 2,826. Very similar, 24 touchdowns, very similar, 13 interceptions, very similar, 10-3 campaign. Will Levis now playing for the Tennessee Titans as starting quarterback and having a pretty decent career so far. So I feel like maybe this is a decent guy. I overlooked him. Shane Waldron, Clinton Kubiak. As you know, I'm a maxi for Tommy Rees. I do think Tommy Rees has some real upside there, but in between these stints, Coen spent the 2022 season as the Rams offensive coordinator on the Sean McVay staff during their sluggish Super Bowl hangover, where they were a bottom 5 offense in many categories, including dead last in total yards. So let's consider that before we make a decision. He did transition to one of the worst offenses ever. So I hope that Ryan Poles, when he's looking at this, is looking at that. And, I want to see Ryan Poles. I want to see Matt Eberflus make a decision here with no downside or with no obvious downside. And I will say this, I think that is an obvious downside. So if he comes in and if it happens, then I am confident that he is a quarterback guy. I'm not confident that he's going to be able to manage everything and all of the processes. And, it's very difficult when you win a Super Bowl because your free agents do tend to take off and you have to build a team. So, we can call it the hangover, but we have to remember that Liam Coen was the guy during that hangover for the Los Angeles Rams. So I would be a little bit worried. But overall, again, it's a quarterback whisperer. It's a guy that does a good job talking to quarterbacks. So maybe, just maybe, that is the guy. But now we have time. And by the way, thank you so much again for all of your support. We're going to look right now at the offseason, what it's going to look like for the Chicago Bears, get kind of an idea of who's returning, who's not returning, what we expect, what we don't expect. Are there any kind of crazy things that are out there that we might be missing? I don't know the answer to that, but we're going to find out. We're going to figure it out as we go, as we navigate this crazy offseason for the Chicago Bears. And I want to thank you again so much, but make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment down below letting me know if you are a fan of some of the decisions that the Bears made. Let's talk about it. Let's work it out. And if we find something out here that you guys like or don't like, then we turn it into content and we bring it on stage here because that's what we want to do. So we want to make sure you, the fans, are informed and that you, the fans, have a voice in what's happening. And as this channel grows, as this channel builds, then, maybe somebody will pay attention. All right, now we're going to be talking about the offseason here. This is What they're looking for right now is Shane Waldron being hired as the new OC. That is just, this is, by the way, this is kind of a mock offseason that we're looking at right now. But they're bringing in Shane Waldron as the OC, and we're looking at all the cuts here. Cody Whitehair, Eddie Jackson. I actually think this is a great move here. I don't, no disrespect. Those guys served the Chicago Bears so well for so many years that, all you can do is thank them for everything that they've done for this team. Now, there's some interesting things down here. At the number 1 pick to New England for the number 3 pick, which I think actually plays out to me in my mind as a very good move. And the reason for that is because I still think that you end up with an opportunity for a Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm going to say that. And then they're going to screw it up for me right afterwards because you move the number 1 pick. New England obviously goes after Caleb Williams or Drake May, one of the two. But then it says that you're going to make another trade here to accumulate and stack up so that you have 3 number 1 picks in 2025. And by that, I mean that the number 1 pick to New England gets you the number 1 pick in 2025. And the number 3 pick to Atlanta gets you the number 1 pick for Atlanta in 2025, plus your own pick. So now you got 3 picks. So stacking for the draft may be a good idea. But Poles almost pulled it off last year, trading down twice for the number 1 pick with Houston and then with Carolina. In the end, Houston backed out. This time he brings it home. Now, I'm not sure that I'm good with this idea because now you only have the number 8 pick, and that means that Marvin Harrison Jr. goes somewhere else. But let's move on to this. Jalen Johnson gets re-signed. Lucas Patrick gets re-signed. Equanimeous St. Brown gets re-signed. I disagree with Lucas Patrick and Equanimeous St. Brown, but I understand the need for depth. So if you can get them at $1 million and $1 million, then that's actually not a bad deal. And maybe you take that. You take cornerback Josh Blackwell, Greg Stroman at cornerbacks, serviceable backups, not setting the world on fire, but serviceable backups. And then you have Dylan Cole coming in at linebacker on a cheap deal, and Patrick Scales coming in again on a cheap deal as extensions of what we already have. So backups taken care of, and then in free agency, we're talking about picking up edge rusher Bryce Huff. Not a bad idea. Julian Blackmon at safety. You do need a safety. Julian Blackmon coming in would be a good replacement for Eddie Jackson. Connor Williams. Now remember, Connor Williams did come in off of an ACL problem, was out for an extended period of time, but he played for Miami. Was a great guy for Miami. You're going to play a 1-year deal, earn it for $6 million, see how he does. Maybe, just maybe, this turns out to be one of the steals of free agency, but we'll have to see it play out first. And then we have Gerald Everett coming in as a tight end, with a lot of people talking about the 2 tight end set becoming the norm for the NFL. You want to compliment to Cole Kmet. Mercedes Lewis, obviously, retiring this year, probably becoming a coach somewhere, maybe even for the Bears. But then you have the draft. In the first round, via all of these trading downs, you end up with Rome Odunze. Now, listen. This is, I do not think that Rome Odunze is as good I think he's the 3rd best receiver in this draft. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, how can you say that? Because the Huskies were, in the hunt. Huskies got annihilated, right? They were not one of the better teams. They just played a weaker schedule and a weaker conference. Now, that doesn't mean that he doesn't have talent, and it doesn't mean that I wouldn't be happy for him to be a Chicago Bears player. But what I'm not happy with is the move down and the miss on Marvin Harrison Jr. or on Malik Neighbors. I do think that they are better. Not just that Marvin Harrison is the best wide receiver, but that Malik Neighbors is a better option for Justin Fields than Rome Odunze. So that's my opinion of that. So, take it for what you will. I just think that Malik Neighbors is the kind of guy who can get you open in space in a shorter field than Rome Odunze, who, when we look at this, he was their primary playmaker in the passing game, making tough catch after tough catch and showcasing a well-rounded arsenal of moves at 6'3", good speed, and runs routes like a pro. Best of all, he can win 50-50 shots more than most. Fair enough, and he runs a 4.3 40. So he does have the downfield capabilities. He's got everything that you're looking for. But again, what good is going downfield in case you're not able to block as effectively as you want to? then you need somebody who can get open in space in shorter passing games. And that, I think, is what we need for Justin Fields. But again, I'm just guessing here. So then you move down here in the second round, you're picking up Brandon Dorius from Oregon, Jackson Powers Johnson from Oregon, Ricky Pearsall from Florida. Actually, decent pickup there. Michael Pratt from Tulane at quarterback. Will Shipley, running back from Clemson, and Cooper Beebe, Kansas State. Fair enough. So, what do we learn here? I disagree most fundamentally with this draft and the selections that they're making right there. But, maybe, just maybe, that was the best that they could come up with. And they thought that it was creative and thought that it made a lot of sense. And maybe, in some context, it makes a lot of sense if you're looking at it through a certain lens. I disagree fundamentally with some of those moves right there. And I do think that there are some showcase names that I would really like to see coming in that draft. Not so much in free agency. In free agency, look, fill some holes. Make sure that you've got, don't go crazy. The one thing that I would say, and the one thing that I will agree with in this is, I think when you looked at that and when you saw that, we didn't overspend. Connor Williams at $6 million was probably the biggest expenditure coming into that. So I want to say that that's probably the biggest one. And then Julian Blackmon coming in to replace Eddie Jackson, about $6 million a year. Not too bad. Maybe Bryce Huff, maybe Bryce Huff, because I think he's going to cost about $40 million over 3 years. So you're not spending, but you're not overspending. So that was a good one. And again, guys, if you like this content, please make sure that you hit the like button and subscribe button. I'm trying to get to 1,000 to get ad revenue monetized here. And it helps me if everybody hits that button and supports it. But now we're going to talk about the rest of the league. And guys, this is an absolute mess of people just trying to figure out. But we're going to talk about a few of them. And we're going to start off here with ESPN. ESPN has predicted that the Bears will take Caleb Williams at the number 1 pick. And then at the number 9 pick, Dallas Turner. By the way, you're going to see Dallas Turner come up over and over. I'm going to tell you that I prefer Jared Verse. I'm going to tell you that every single time. However, I don't have a problem with Dallas Turner from a talent standpoint. I really think that Jared Verse is more polished and ready for the NFL than Dallas Turner. But let's look at this. You consider that he's playing the best people in the SEC. He needs to add more pass rush moves, but he's continued to get better each season, posting a career-high 10 sacks in 2023 and 16.7 pressure rate, 8th best in the FBS. And at 6'4", 242, he comes with versatility and is comfortable dropping into coverage. So, that's not a bad move. But let's move on. The Athletic says that what they think is that the Bears are going to trade down to the Falcons, and then they think that they're going to pick up Keon Coleman from Florida State. And guys, I'm going to tell you this right now. Keon Coleman is almost unguardable in many aspects. That doesn't mean that he's the best wide receiver or that he's even one of the top 4 receivers, but he is a big guy, and he is very difficult to guard. So you could make a case in the NFL that he's maybe more built or even better built to succeed than some of the other guys that are in this draft. I don't think so. I think Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, and Rome Odunze at this point still represent better options, especially with those high picks. But they're picking Keon Coleman from Florida State. And then with the number 9 pick, again, we fall back to Dallas Turner. We've already talked about him, his versatility, his ability, the 10 sacks, the pressures that he put up. So the Athletic has given us a little different look there. And then we have NBC Sports, who are telling us now that Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze, which I think, a lot of people are kind of going with at this point. With people really either picking Caleb Williams or moving down. So we're going to spend too much time on that. CBS Sports, however, is picking the favorites here. Caleb Williams with the number 1 overall pick, and then Dallas Turner with Alabama. And guys, look, if we are fortunate enough to get Caleb Williams, that would mean that there had to be some value, a value added proposition for Justin Fields. I don't know what that value added proposition would be, but unless we get a decent haul for Justin Fields, I would prefer to see Justin Fields sticking it out, and I would prefer having some talent to surround him. I will state that for the record. Now, Fox Sports says that they're going to take Caleb Williams and Rome Odunze, so we're getting some consensus here that Caleb Williams, Rome Odunze fall into this mix here, but again, I disagree. Sports Illustrated says we're going to take the number 3 pick. We're going to trade down from New England and go with Marvin Harrison Jr. This is the move that I like the best, because I do think that the Washington Commanders with the number 2 pick probably end up taking Drake May. New England wants to move up above so that they can draft Caleb Williams and rebuild their quarterback. But listen, Marvin Harrison Jr., that is, to me, the man of the draft. So then at the number 9, you've got edge rusher. So we're taking Bryce Huff out of the mix here, and we're adding Latu from UCLA. I like this pick. He's a dynamic rusher, and he can get to the quarterback. So that's I like that one. That one's good for me. And Pro Football Network now says number 1 pick Caleb Williams, and the number 9 pick offensive tackle Talise Fuagua from Oregon State. So that's a great idea, but here's the thing. We're going to have to decide whether Braxton Jones is the man or not. Darnell Wright is obviously shored up the right side of this line. The question would be, Larry Odom, obviously we don't have any use for Odom. He's got to go. But Braxton Jones has not been horrible. He's not had a horrible time of it at left tackle. And other than, look, Tevin Jenkins has been very good until, he gave up 2 sacks in that final game. But look, I think this line only improves, I want to say. So I'm not sure that I would go with this, but I can understand why somebody feels that need. Look at Braxton Jones, take a hard look and decide. But DraftWire comes up with something new. They come up with Marvin Harrison, just take him at number 1. And then at pick 9, take Jerzon Newton for another interior defensive lineman. Is this the guy to complement Gervon Dexter? Maybe he is. Maybe that's the kind of push that we need on the upside. Maybe that will give somebody like a Bryce Huff some opportunities on the outside, because if you have to double your defensive tackle, if you have to provide double coverage every single time, then you're freeing up a man. So that gives your edge rushers a better opportunity to beat those tackles. And we know Montez Sweat can move that, but so far, by the way, no Jared Verse. So let's move on here. For the Win is now picking the number 1 pick, Drake May. So we're skipping Caleb Williams, and they think that he's sturdier and steadier. And look, I don't know that the Chicago Bears survive taking another number 10 from North Carolina quarterback. But they're calling for Drake May, who is, look, the guy is a solid player all over. So, maybe, just maybe, look, I'm going to support it. I'm a Chicago Bears fan. Let me say this before we continue. I'm a Chicago Bears fan before I am a Justin Fields fan. Before I am any one of these players fan, I am a Chicago Bears fan. So I want what's best for the Chicago Bears. I don't always agree with some of these assessments here. I don't always agree that Drake May, and look, you can't take another number 10 North Carolina quarterback at it. But good try here, guys. But bringing this back up, number 9, Jared versus Florida State. How much will scouts judge versus decent 2023 against his breakthrough 2022? The prize edge rusher opted to return to Florida State last spring, despite the suggestion he'd be a first-round pick, but his total sacks was just 4.5 through 11 games before a furious finish gave him 9 in 13 games to go with 12 tackles for loss. As the games continued, he got better and better and finished with 9 sacks, 4.5 sacks in the last 2 games. So one of them against my favorite, Louisville. So Jared Verse. But anyway, I think that's a great one. NBC Sports Chicago, we've already talked about that right now, drafting down to Roma Dunzi and then Liatu Latu. That's in yesterday's video, so you can check that out if you want to. Yardbreaker comes back in with the Caleb Williams, Roma Dunzi picks. We're starting to get consensus here. Caleb Williams and Roma Dunzi with the first pick is picking Drake May and Brock Bowers. Now, listen, I don't think Brock Bowers drops to the number 9, in fairness, but 2 tight end sets are becoming in vogue in the NFL. So perhaps that's what we're looking at, and perhaps that's a good one. Super Bowl Nation is predicting Drake May and Joe Alt, offensive tackle from Notre Dame. Basically, that's a hometown guy in that context. So if we're going to bring in a tackle, it gives Chicago the ability to make Braxton Jones a swing tackle. So I'm not a fan of bringing in an offensive tackle, as we just discussed. However, there is a certain tug at the heartstrings here to bring in a Notre Dame guy in that left tackle position. So, I'll allow that one and not say, that's not a horrible idea, just by virtue, again, of the fact that we're talking about somebody from one of the local teams. So maybe, not a fan, but maybe that's a good idea. So that's it. And that wraps it up. So guys, let me know what you think. I mean, it seems to be a consensus here that Caleb Williams is still that number 1 guy. There's been a lot of support for Marvin Harrison Jr. As well as that guy, but also Roma Dunzi. There, as I went through here, as you guys saw here, we did not see any Malik Neighbors. So I don't want to say that everybody's wrong, but if you guys know me from my original channel, which is the cryptocurrency channel, I'm always right. So I think my opinion is you take that number 1 pick, you trade it down. You can trade it down to New England. And the reason you can do that is because both the Washington Commanders and New England guaranteed need quarterbacks. Now, once you get past that, I think the Falcons come in right after that, and they need a wide receiver desperately. So that's Marvin Harrison. So you got to go no more than number 3 pick, and you got to take Marvin Harrison. And listen, if you're telling me that you don't think a generational talent to complement DJ Moore and the skill set of Justin Fields is worth the number 3 pick, I have concerns. I've trusted in Ryan Poles, but I would have concerns if, in fact, we're talking about a generational talent like Marvin Harrison Jr. So Marvin Harrison, Hall of Fame wide receiver. Marvin Harrison, Biletnikoff award-winning wide receiver, son of a champion with a huge and long career. I would just consider that the environment that he might have been raised in would be conducive to him being the type of player, the type of character as his father. And guys, Marvin Harrison was one of the GOATs. So, I don't know that his son measures up. I don't know that anybody's son ever measures up to their dad, who's a Hall of Famer or a legend or something like that. Very rare, but maybe this guy is the one. These guys are watching it, and we knew a lot of different players are not, but we're not saying that about Marvin Harrison Jr. So, my pick at number 3, Marvin Harrison Jr. I'm going to go back down here at number 9 again, and I'm going to tell you guys, I think that it should be Jared Verse. Okay. However, I would accept Dallas Turner. What I do think is that defensive line needs one more good, solid, nice edge rusher. Now, in free agency, if you can pick up Bryce Huff, then that changes the dynamic of what you can do in the draft. So if that changes, by the way, and we'll evaluate this over time because this is a changing environment, but if we get a nice haul in free agency and we get a Bryce Huff, or we get a defensive end who can attack, and we get some help, then maybe that changes. Maybe we start looking at Joe Alt. Maybe we start looking around and we look at Fuatu out of Oregon State. So maybe, just maybe, we change that. And what if we could pick up Brock Bowers to go along with Marvin Harrison Jr. We've changed the dynamic of this team. Brock Bowers blocks, catches. He's a matchup problem. He's a nightmare for everybody. By the way, guys, I think it should be noted, Cole Kmet is the same thing. He's a nightmare. He's a matchup problem for a lot of people. So it changes the dynamic of this team. This team becomes a threat. And look, the passing game, even with DJ Moore, is not a threat because we don't have the depth. We don't have the ability to get open. Darnell Mooney did everything that he could. And, he's just not cut out for that number 2 slot or that number 1 slot. At best, he's a slot receiver. And you know what? Stretch the field. Okay. Stretch the field. But, if I'm choosing, then I'm really, by the way, changing as we go. If you've noticed, away from Malik Neighbors as my number 9 pick, and I'm giving in to what some people feel are other needs. I would like to see Marvin Harrison and Malik Neighbors as a wide receiving core, but I'm willing to accept some of these changes. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. If you think I'm crazy for wanting 2 wide receivers in the top 9 picks, you can tell me that. I don't mind. Listen, I would be happy to debate you and tell you why you're wrong and why I'm right. I do that all day long. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. I'm just kidding, by the way. But this is, I think this is going to be a fascinating and a very interesting thing. Liam Cohen, maybe he's the guy. Shane Waldron, maybe he's the guy. Don't know. Clint Kubiak, maybe he's the guy. Maybe they do what I said and reach out for Tommy Reese. You never know. You never know what's going to happen here. But I'm certainly interested and fascinated to find out. And like I told you guys already, the Bears next year. The Bears are a Super Bowl contender. It's early. Somebody is, a lot of you are going to think that's absolutely insane. That's absolutely bonkers. No, it's not. This team is only going to get better. This team is being built. This team is being developed, and it will be in the playoffs next year. And it will be a threat. It's a first-year team coming into the playoffs. So will it win the Super Bowl? I don't think so. It would be wild to me if the Bears became capable of winning a Super Bowl. That would be an enormous leap. I don't think so. But I think that they are prepared to contend. And I think that that's going to be very important. But let me know what you think in the comments down below. Thank you so much for tuning in.